It is time for Ask the Mayor, our weekly program with Mayor Stan Worth, who, by the way, is going to do all the talking today here. So,
yeah, well, I think I should, because listening to you, it almost brings tears to my eyes.
I'll try to get out some questions here or whatever, and hopefully I don't give you anything here. But
that's my hope also, Douglas. Good thing we're about 3 feet apart.
That's true. Anyway, welcome in today. Thanks
Thank you.
for coming in again, Stan. One thing I wanted to start out with today, because I thought it was kind of a neat feature. I know Amanda Kuhlman does a lot with your Facebook page for the city of Beatrice, and they had kind of a nice kind of rotating photo feature of city employees who are veterans. I didn't realize you had 17 people that either have served in the military or still serve in the military.
Yeah. And that is was a nice tribute that Amanda put on the Facebook page, and just letting the general public know that we have individuals that are with our departments that have a long-standing in the military and are dedicated to service, not only service to their country, but also service to our community.
And sometimes some of those are actually called up to duty while they're still working with you.
Correct.
So those departments have to make adjustments to allow them to
correct.
serve. So most of them in the fire and police departments, almost a dozen members, but you also have members from the sanitation, water, street, engineering, and then the airport too, the new airport manager. So quite a dedication to their country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, it was nice that it was put on Facebook, and that the general public can recognize those individuals.
And we'd like to thank all veterans. Had some nice ceremonies over the weekend. I know the flags flew for about a 4-day period.
Really nice ceremony.
It was neat. Didn't make the Board of Public Works meeting on Wednesday, but I know one of the things that's coming up due to the election, the BPW is going to be losing their longtime chairman, Dave Eskridge, who becomes a second ward city councilman, being elected in November. He served quite a while.
He has. I appointed him some years ago, and has done a really nice job, and has always studied what was on the agenda on a weekly basis, and he will serve the city council in the same vein and same capacity. He just does his homework and does it well. The new chairman will be appointed by the incoming mayor, Bob Morgan, and I think that is something that needs to be in the process that Morgan does appoint that individual, because Bob's the one that's going to have to work with the individual.
Mm-hmm. You know, as an advisory board, it's an unpaid position, but you look at what they oversee in terms of the enterprise and the amount of money it takes to run public utility departments. That maybe is one of the key non-elected bodies in the city of Beatrice.
It really is, and it takes an awful lot of pressure off of the city council. They actually, and it helps with oversight just a little bit. You've got a group of individuals who look at those issues and then make their recommendations before the city council then has the opportunity to take a look at the issues also. So I think it is just a little bit of a checks and balances, and Board of Public Works and what they do is really invaluable to the community.
Other than Dave's position on the BPW, are there other spots that Bob will be appointing or reappointing soon on that body?
Well, he'll need to fill the chairmanship position, and then he'll need to fill the vacancy left by Mr. Eskridge. But as terms expire, some of the individuals will stay on, some of the individuals will choose not to stay on. And so that is something that's constant, and we're always looking for good volunteers to serve on those boards. There is, I think, a list of individuals who are interested in serving on the Board of Public Works, and I will convey that information to Mr. Morgan.
You know, in almost 8 years now as mayor, do you recall about how many people you've appointed to various bodies and commissions? Or?
Yeah, you usually have those that want to continue to serve in a volunteer capacity over and over and over, but because of attrition, because of folks that move away, because of all other circumstances, You have to kind of rack your brain just a little bit to figure out who you want to put into those positions and who is willing to serve in those positions. There's been several times that I've asked individuals, they've said, let me think about it, and then as it turns out, they turned me down.
Yeah.
And so you're going, oh, shuck, no, I got to do something else.
You haven't kept a score like on rejection rate or anything like that, have you?
No, I really haven't. The rejection rate has been very, very small, which is good news.
Yeah.
But there's people out there in our community that are willing to serve. They just need to be asked.
Okay. At the Board of Public Works meeting yesterday, one of the matters on the agenda was new equipment and pumps at the Fourth and Grant reservoirs, an agreement to be forwarded to the council. A lot of people, we go drive by there every day and we don't think much of it, but there's a couple of very sizable underground reservoirs at that location on opposite sides.
There
of the
are,
street.
and I was in one of them, and I think it's over 1 million gallon capacity,
Yeah.
which is a huge. The scariest part was going down the ladder, only because it is a long span from the top to the bottom, and you've got a ladder that's flexing back and forth as you're going down, and that's not much fun. But yeah, there's some equipment that needs to be looked at. The plan is to replace that equipment, have a consulting group that is going to look at what actually needs to be done. The question was asked yesterday of Steve Kelly, our water superintendent, of how old some of these pumps were and some of the other components that go along with these pumps for the control panels and everything else. And Steve's been here 45 plus years, and he said they were there when he arrived.
Wow.
So it is time to take a look, upgrade those. The worst thing worst case scenario that we would ever have is that they would fail. Mm-hmm. And so we want to make sure and be proactive that we improve what is there and make the necessary improvements and get the new pumps and everything else that's necessary. But we'll wait for the study to be completed.
Yeah. Those underground reservoirs are also drained and cleaned out every now and then. Are you coming up on that period again?
The one was done, Doug, I think it was done last year, if I'm not mistaken. It was drained, and they went in and they actually clean out whatever debris that could be accumulated in there. Mm-hmm. A lot of calcium and other deposits that and that could affect some of your pumping situations too. So, but I think it was last year, and I think it's every either 5 to 10 years that we have to do it.
All right. A couple other items from the agenda on the Board of Public Works yesterday. Also a recommendation of the council on planning for improving the grit handling system at the wastewater plant. Wastewater plant's really been an area where you've done a lot of projects since you've been mayor over the years.
And again, another essential part of our community, not a sexy part of our community, but it's something that is absolutely essential. And the grit handling system needs to be improved. 8 years ago, when I went to the wastewater pollution control area, looked at their grit system, and it is something that is a little more antiquated than I think what some of the new and improved grit handling systems are. And the grit is actually sand, eggshells, snails that get into the system. And it has to be removed before it goes into some of the pumping systems. Otherwise, you're going to compromise those pumps and everything else. So it's very essential that we have that. What we have today is, again, needs to be improved. And there is, again, a study that's going to be undertaken. I think that starts mid-December. And the designated work or the design work should be completed by July, so it takes quite a while to do all of this. They'll submit it then to the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy sometime in the month of August. They'll award the bids in September, and by November it should be completed, November of next year.
Okay. The third item on the agenda was an agreement regarding developing a plan on spill prevention control. What's that all about?
That is, we have several areas at the BPW Service Center, Beatrice Solid Waste Center, and then at the Water Pollution Control Center and Mars, where we have fuel tanks. And you have to have a plan in place, and it's mandated that you have a plan in place to take care of any kind of spill that may occur. Now, we've got a plan. Plan is a bit outdated, so it's going to be updated and upgraded. And so we've hired, or the recommendation is to hire an engineering company to take a look at it, see what is needed, and put it in place.
People might ask, you frequently have engineering agreements or consultant contracts up for consideration. They might ask, why do you, go outside and spend so much money on consultants and things? But
right.
That's kind of their area of
That's their area.
expertise.
You try to stay in your lane as much as you possibly can. If you have to have somebody with that type of expertise, you're going to spend more money hiring somebody to have some expertise in wastewater treatment. If you're going to have expertise in landfills. Mm-hmm. So that's why you go outside. It's even though it seems like it's expensive, and in this instance, it's going to be about $31,000 for that spill prevention control program. But in this instance, it's a heck of a lot cheaper than having an employee on staff who is just has the expertise in that area. Mm-hmm. Paying them a salary, benefits, and everything else. So that's what you do. You go out and go to the folks that know what they're doing.
Stan Worth, Mayor of Beatrice, with us today on Ask the Mayor, and we'll have more in a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor with Mayor Stan Worth today. Well, last weekend, I guess you could probably officially say it was the first snow of the season, although it really didn't amount to much, but I think I probably saw a city truck or two out maybe dropping a little bit of sand or salt on a couple of areas.
Just a couple of areas that are a little more protected, I think. It wasn't anything that was general, but a couple of areas that were protected, and the snow accumulated, and just because of the cold temperatures, it just made a slick spot.
Still waiting for that first big one.
I don't want don't want you to talk about it.
2.5 weeks, and you won't have to worry about that.
There you go.
And but next week looks pretty good for Thanksgiving week. So it looks like fall is still.
That's what I'm going to tell the incoming Mayor Morgan. I'm going to say, oh, by the way, here's winter.
Yeah, here's what you get a deal.
It's all
with
yours.
Here, yeah. Speaking of weather, of course, we all knew about the severe hailstorm that took place this past June, which hit portions of Beatrice and really hit southern parts of Gage County, including the city of Wymore as well. But regarding recovery from some of the hail damage, regarding city vehicles and buildings, how's things coming there so far?
Some of the vehicles are being repaired if they can be repaired. Some of them are being replaced. The roofs on city buildings are going to be probably redone this spring just because of the way temperatures are today. Some of them could be done maybe next week because temperatures are going to be in the 50s. But you get too late into the year, into the fall and maybe early winter months, it's probably not a really good time to do anything. Really don't have any leaks in any of our buildings today, but by the same token, they still are going to be replaced starting next spring.
I was wondering, the new fire station, did it take some of the damage?
Did.
I heard there was some light damage too, and then plus the roof.
There was quite a bit of damage to the fire station, and that will be replaced also.
Mm-hmm. It's too bad you get a new building built, and all of a sudden here comes Mother Nature.
And you can't control Mother Nature.
That's for sure. Yeah. So by the time everything's wrapped up, all the damage is repaired and equipment replaced, probably next year sometime, summer or so?
Yeah, I would say they'll get started first part of spring as the weather is conducive to it. These roofing crews, as you've noticed and everybody else has noticed, move pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
And the folks that are doing the roofs, they do it from sunup to sundown, and they stay on the job until it's completed. Usually during the day, if it's a big job, they make sure that the roof is closed in as much as possible, just in case there's some inclement weather that comes in. But for the most part, they will move pretty rapidly, and I don't think it's going to take them all that long to do it.
It's probably one of the busiest years for roofing companies in
Busy.
modern memory.
That's absolutely right,
just
Doug.
due to the weather. You're pretty close to wrapping up kind of a financial and accounting review of city accounts and Board of Public Works. I understand auditors have been in, are pretty close to wrapping things
They should
up.
wrap up by the end of this week. They've been here for several days now, and really don't anticipate any kind of issues whatsoever. And we handed them a year-end report that was a pretty glowing report as far as our different departments and how they have fared as far as revenues are concerned. In most instances, we're ahead of where we were at this time last year, and that's good news. And we don't anticipate that they're going to find that there was any type of compromises in the policies that we have in place. You set a policy in place, you follow that policy, and if you follow the policy to the letter, you're not going to have any issues. And BKD is doing our internal audit work today, and my guess is that the council will receive, before the end of the year, a pretty good report.
By and large, how are reserves within departments? Are you pretty satisfied that those are at levels that are appropriate for the city?
I would agree that they are. The electric department, we have pretty good reserves in that department, but we want to maintain those reserves just because of the high cost of any equipment replacement that would occur. As you go back to that was in February, where we had the polar vortex, where it cost right at $2 million in extra electricity costs, and we had the reserves on hand to bear the brunt of all of that, where we didn't have to raise rates, and that was, I thought, a real positive thing.
Okay. Back with more to wrap up Ask the Mayor in just a moment with Mayor Stan Worth. You're listening to Ask the Mayor on KWBE as we wrap up things today with Mayor Stan Worth. We did get a question in during the break. A caller was wondering if there's any update on the Lincoln Street Corridor project, and was wondering if there might be any more community meetings scheduled.
The report was delivered to us in September, and should there be another public meeting, I certainly agree that there should be, just to let those that live along Lincoln Street, those that travel Lincoln Street, have the opportunity to see what the final report looks like. At this time, we are currently in discussions of where we can find additional funding to help provide the resources to complete that project. More than likely, that project will be done in phases as opposed to all at one time, even though in the long run, it may be cheaper to do it all at once as opposed to over a several-year span go out for additional bids or new bids, because prices don't seem to go backwards. They seem to go forwards. So, but as far as having another public meeting, I think I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And stay tuned. We should give you some updates on when that would be. Okay.
I think it was a week ago they were going to be doing the evaluation, an engineering firm evaluation of the Paddock Kensington building. Any word on how that came out?
No, they were here last week, and they were in the building doing their necessary review of the structure of the building, the HVAC system, anything else that maybe needs to be looked at. They didn't delve into going behind the walls and look at the electrical connections and that kind of thing. It was more of a on-the-surface review. We have not received that report back yet. Once we do, we'll certainly impart that information.
Okay. Well, in about 2.5 weeks, he will be handing over the reins to Bob Morgan, as we mentioned, as the new mayor elected in the November election. What goes on in between now and then? Obviously, Bob's been on the council for a while, as his opponent, Gary Barnard, has been. And so I'm sure both of them, they know the ropes and everything, know what's going on in the city. But is there any transition work with Bob that goes on in kind of this interim before he takes over?
Well, Bob has always been involved in some biweekly planning sessions and been on the city council now right at 8 years. So Bob certainly knows the ropes and some of the things that the city has in the works today, some of the things that need to be completed. He and I are going to sit down and just go through some policy making decisions of where, not necessarily where I think things need to progress, but more I think on the level of how do we do this and how do we accomplish this and how do we get to that end result. And I think I'm not going to give him any advice. I certainly don't want him to look back on my reign of terror and give me advice
or evaluate
or evaluation. So I'm not going to give him any kind of critique on what should be done and needs to be done. That's going to be for him to decide and his city council. But we'll sit down and we'll just, in general, talk about some of the processes that we go through and how we meet that end result.
Are there major projects coming up in this next year right away that maybe will take quite a bit of attention?
Well, there's always street work that's going to be forefront. And we've got a couple of big projects, the concrete reconstruction, 13th Street, Beaver to Oak. That's going to be a big paving project. Then the Highway 136 reroute study. Yeah. That is in process. That is something that will take, I wouldn't say a considerable amount of time, but it's going to take plenty of time to determine what is going to be the best fit, where the funding is going to come from. The Nebraska Department of Transportation is on board with the plan that, or at least the concept of what we're talking about, same as they were back in, I want to say 2012, 2013. They were on board with it at that time. They indicated there is some funding from the state that is available, but I think it's minimal in comparison to what the total project cost will be. And so I think that is something that is going to take some additional time. We'll have some mill and overlay projects that are going on, and the water department is always busy with different things that they're doing. I think the couple of main projects that they're going to be undertaking this next year is along 33rd Street, taking a water line from Lincoln Street all the way down 33rd Street to Highway 136. Not necessarily for the new elementary school, but for the concept of trying to get everything put into place just in case there is additional development to the south of where the new elementary school is going to be located.
On the Court Street project and relocating traffic south, do you sense from a private standpoint, business standpoint, that there will be more willingness this time around to accept that as a solution? Because that last study that was done by RDG, I think, of Omaha, it kind of sat there for a while, and there were some doubts about whether or not that was the best.
Yeah, I think, Doug, today it has more traction than it has ever had, and I think it is meeting with some really good results from property owners, from business owners today, that they feel that a more pedestrian-friendly environment downtown is going to enhance their businesses a lot more than having, through truck traffic. Yeah. I just think it creates a more safer environment for pedestrians. You don't have large trucks that are turning at 6th and Court, even though, we have a truck route. The truck route is a suggestion. It's not mandatory.
Do you think maybe that part of that change in attitude sometimes results from every once in a while you'll block off streets for temporary events downtown, like, for instance, the Halloween event recently.
Sure.
You see the number of people that come down and walk around downtown,
right.
And obviously that's a special occasion, but
right.
Seeing that foot traffic, it makes you kind of think, man, wouldn't it be nice to have
just
this
to have
all the time or close to all the time?
Have an area where you do have a truck traffic, but the actual general public could use that same route. You know, we've got the holiday parade that's coming up.
Yeah.
You know, that's a similar instance where you have to block off the streets, and it would be nice that it would be just a little more of an entertainment district.
Yeah. Council meeting coming up Monday night. We don't have time to really get into any of the items to discuss, but light agenda, heavy agenda for Monday.
Oh, kind of a light agenda. Kind of what we talked about, the recommendations from the Board of Public Works. We're going to have a report from Main Street, their quarterly report, and then our city manager's report.
I see.
Yeah.
All right, Mayor, thanks for being with us. Thanks for bailing me out by doing most of the talking
All
today.
right, Doug. Hope you get better.
You bet. And happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, too.
Bet.